Today's lesson is sponsored by Sell Direct Ghana.
Do you want an easy way to sell your goods and services? Don't worry, Buy Sell Direct is here for you. We will help you to sell and buy goods and services at affordable prices. Just upload your information to Buy Sell Direct. Sit back, then relax, and we call the clients for you. You can reach millions of buyers and sellers from the comfort of your home. On our website, you will find goods, services, apartments, houses, hotels, jobs, catering, pets, electronics, vehicles, education, furniture, fashion, and more. Just advertise with us. Then relax. We will call the clients for you.
We have decided to take a look at lessons 1 and 2. Please look in the description box for this, because lessons 1 and 2 obviously are the basis of the learning of a language. Now, before I start, I would like to remind you of one of the early lessons which treated no word is an island. No word is an island is the title I've given to a philosophy which I am developing to support the learning of English language. And so, in every lesson, you'll see this put up, no word is an island. This will remind you that most of the mistakes or issues that we have or make come from the forgetfulness that in a language every word is changed to another word in the same context or sentence in which that word is found. And anytime I'm explaining anything which is an issue that leads us into making mistakes, I will remind you of no word is an island, so that in time we will get there and realize that if we are not sure of anything as we produce a language for communication purposes, we have to go back to look for a word in the sentence that is related to what we are saying, or to the word which we are thinking of using. Now, we are revisiting the very basics of sentence structure. Normally, we have the verb. The verb is the only or the most important word in a sentence, because as we might have been told in our learning of English classes, there is no sentence if there is no verb. Of course, for those higher level learners, it's not just every verb, but then basically if there is no verb, there is no sentence. So I will start reminding everybody that the verb is the nucleus, the center of every sentence. When there is a verb, there is a doer of that verb. The doer of the verb is called the subject. But for these revision purposes, I would like us not to think too much about the technical terms. So we're talking about the verb and a doer. The doer is the one who is doing the verb. For example, I am teaching. The verb is am teaching. The doer is I, because I is the one producing the action of am teaching in the sentence. Remember, at times verbs are one word, teach, taught. At times 2 words, am teaching, or even more than that, have been teaching, for example. Now, At times, we say something after the verb. For example, I am teaching English. English then is where the verb goes, because the verb comes from me, I, the verb I'm teaching, and it goes to English. That is something else which we looked at in lessons 3 and 4. You may revisit this. Let me give you an example here. Michael pushed me. Obviously, the verb, which is the most important, is pushed. The doer of pushed is Michael, obviously. Me, where the verb goes. Now, if we remove pushed from the sentence, we lose the sentence. The sentence breaks down, because if we do that, we are left with Michael me. Michael me is no longer a sentence because the verb is gone, and you could see that Michael me has no meaning. So that is the importance of the verb. I'll say this again. Without the verb, we are left with Michael me. This has no meaning, so the sentence is disappeared. Now we do not have a sentence. Now, so that is the verb, who does it, and where the verb moves to. But today we are not very much interested in where the verb moves to, because at times the verb has nowhere to go. We have only subject and verb. For example, I am teaching. She spoke, as we saw in lesson 1. But then there are times when the subject is just not there, when the doer is not there. We saw this in lesson 2. And there are two types of sentences, two basic types of sentences in which the subject is not there. But this doesn't mean that there is no subject. The subject is there, it's just not in the sentence. But then we know that the subject is somewhere. For example, in a command, the two types of sentences are this. Number 1, or A, in a command. In a command, there is usually no sentence. If somebody looks at me and says, come over, in a sentence, there is nobody who is coming over. But then there is something we refer to in lesson 1 as interlocutor. The interlocutor is one of those people involved in a dialogue or conversation. If someone looks at me and tells me, come over, I know I'm going to do the action of coming over, because the command is coming to me. That means I'm going to be the doer. Move back, please. If I look at you and tell you, move back, please, because I'm looking at you, the context and you being my interlocutor, or you being one of the interlocutors, know that you are going to do the action of moving back. So you are the subject. Therefore, the interlocutor, whoever is listening, is the subject when we do a command. Of course, at times, the subject can be mentioned in a command. Moses, come over. Whoever is Moses knows that he is the subject. But commands can come without a subject, like come over. B, The second type of sentence in which there is no doer is in sentences which come in the passive voice. The passive voice can come with a subject or with a doer or without a doer. For example, Mary's food was eaten. Mary's food was eaten. We know some action took place, was eaten, but we don't know who ate it. Mary doesn't come in because Mary is the owner of the food, but she did not eat it. Mary's food was eaten. We don't know who ate it. If we want to know in this sentence, we need to add a by phrase. For example, Mary's food was eaten by Rajiv. Rajiv then is the doer of the verb was eaten. The verb goes to Mary's food. But then, as I've said today, that is not our emphasis. Our emphasis is not on where the verb goes, which in this case was Mary's food. But our emphasis is on two things. What's eaten as the verb, then the doer of the verb, Rajiv. So in the passive voice, we can make a sentence without the subject. If we want to bring in a subject so we know who does the action, then we need a by phrase, as we have here, by Rajiv. Remember in lesson 2 of English language, we saw the house was destroyed. The house was destroyed is without the doer of was destroyed. The verb was destroyed is there, so we know yes, something happened, but we don't know what or who did that action. We saw in lesson 2 that if we want to know the subject of the destruction or was destroyed, then we need to use a by phrase, so we can say by the storm, as we saw in lesson 2. Therefore, now we've supplied the doer of was destroyed. The subject of the doer is the storm. So here we have come to an overview, the end of an overview of lessons 1 and 2. I have deliberately left out some technical terms which we saw in lessons 1 and 2. If you are not focusing on studies in the classroom, you may forget about the technical terms. The important thing is just to note that we have a verb, center of the sentence. The most important, without the verb, there is no sentence. The doer of the verb is the subject. At times, the doer is not there. If the doer is not there, it may be a command that is in use. Then whoever is listening to the command knows that they are the one that will do the action, so that that person becomes the doer. Finally, in passive voice sentences like Mary's food was eaten or the house was destroyed, there may not be a doer, as these sentences say. Mary's food was eaten, the house was destroyed. They are complete sentences with complete, absolutely complete meaning. But then we don't know who did the eating and what did the destruction. If we add a by phrase by Rajiv, yes, we know who did it. If we add a by phrase by the storm, we know who. We know what destroyed the house. Here we go. So hopefully this will remind you of lessons 1 and 2. This is Roger Olympio, your WEBICLASS teacher. Bye-bye. And I'll see you in the next lesson. Thank you.